Hello and welcome to Planet News. Here you will find everything new and exclusive. We hope you will join us by pressing subscribe and then like the video.
I want to play those remarks by President Trump this evening where he talked about UV light and disinfectant, which is used for disinfecting, tables and killing the virus on surfaces. And he was talking about somehow using it inside your body, which is not medically at all a good idea. This is what the president said.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
I'm going to leave it up to you two, but it just seems wildly irresponsible for the President of the United States to be musing out loud about people injecting disinfectant, used bleach and other disinfectants used to kill viruses on surfaces and in your kitchen, doing anything with that internally. It just, doctors, right. What do you make of it?
And he also said it needs to be studied. Actually, it doesn't. I mean, we know the answer to this one. There's a lot of things out there that we don't know the answers to, and we need to investigate. But the idea that we would do a trial of some sort and inject some people with disinfectant and some people not and see what happens, I mean, as you point out, I think everybody would know that that would be dangerous and counterproductive and not at all moving us in the right direction. I don't know, Lena, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also worry that there are a lot of people for whom President Trump is the most trusted messenger. And I really hope that people are not listening to what he said tonight and thinking, well, maybe I should try this myself at home.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we're all sitting around talking about it as if it's, even something that's sort of vaguely acceptable and normal for the President of the United States, whose words are supposed to matter, to be saying this out in public. I mean, it just, as a citizen, this is just a terrible, terrible idea. Nobody anywhere should be ingesting any of this stuff, correct?
Correct. Unequivocal. I don't think there's any need to hedge on that. It was interesting when we talked to Dr. Hahn about it, what he said. He was very careful, obviously, as I guess he needs to be, but he said, well, these are conversations that are happening between patients and doctors, right. So we wanted to address them. Well, I mean, we should address it then. Don't do this.
But what terrified me about that, though, that conversation, is that it seems like at times the medical professionals and scientific professionals who are, allowed to speak at the White House by the president and the vice president, and their ability to speak is dependent on the vice president and the president allowing them to speak. His answer was, well, yes, that's kind of like the questions that anybody would ask their doctor. And yeah, that's probably true. But the president is not just anybody, and the briefing room of the White House is not a doctor's office, and millions of people are listening. And out of those millions of people, some people may try that.
Yeah, I wouldn't normalize this at all. I wouldn't even say that. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Hahn, obviously, but I don't think that this is a common conversation happening in doctors' offices. I mean, I'm a doctor. Lena, you're a doctor. Have patients been asking you, should they inject themselves with bleach? This isn't I just don't think we should be normalizing that in any way, shape, or form. Lena, do you agree?
I completely agree. I don't even think, as you said, we should not be hedging here. Look, I understand the difficult position that Dr. Han and these other doctors and scientists are in because they need to tell the truth while at the same time not upsetting the president so much that they can't be credible in his eyes and be able to still continue to do important work. But we, who are doctors, who are not beholden to the president, we need to be telling the unequivocal truth. And the unequivocal truth in this case is do not try these things at home, and follow your doctor's advice and follow good public health guidance as what would come from the CDC.
Yeah, it terrifies me that the people who run the CDC and the FDA are worried about upsetting the president and watch what they say based on that, because that just, as a citizen, that worries me.
Trump peddles dangerous cures for coronavirus. He's marketed steaks and real estate, board games and vodka, but nothing. The incorrigible salesman has tried to hawk measures up to his latest routine as he speculated on a possible new cure for COVID-19. For most of his life as a pitchman, Trump has only had his own reputation on the line. But now, in the middle of a generational health crisis, lives are at stake. In an eye-popping moment, Trump doubled down on his claim that sunlight and the festering humidity of high summer could purge the virus in his latest grab for a game-changer therapy. Then, he asked aides on camera whether zapping patients with light or injecting disinfectant into the lungs to clean sick patients from inside could cure them of the disease. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Again I say maybe you can, maybe you can't. I am not a doctor. I am like a person who has a good you-know-what, Trump said, pointing to his head. That led the Reckitt Benckiser Group, which produces Lysol, to flatly announce on its website that under no circumstance should disinfectant be administered into the human body. Washington State's Emergency Management Agency warned against eating Tide Pods or injecting disinfectant, tweeting, "Don't make a bad situation worse." Trump's comments made his extravagant claims for the unproven use of the anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine seem peer-reviewed by comparison. And they were ironic, given rising criticism that he repeatedly discredits science that conflicts with his rosy claims the pandemic will soon be over. Trump's bizarre performance came as the horrible dilemma he faces between keeping the economy closed to halt the virus and getting people back to work became even more stark. New data Thursday showed that 26 million Americans have lost their jobs in 5 weeks, reflecting the terrible human impact the current emergency can have even on people who don't get sick. The number of U.S. deaths moved towards 50,000 as the virus dug into more communities, even as a clutch of states laid plans to open back up. The president spent little time at his daily briefing explaining his thinking on how he might safely pilot the nation out of this crisis. Instead, reaching for a new narrative more hopeful than the grim reality in his latest example of miracle thinking on how to beat the pandemic. He called upon William Bryan, acting director of the Homeland Security Department's Science and Technology Directorate, to unveil research into the coronavirus susceptibility to heat and light. Bryan presented data showing that in some circumstances sunlight can reduce the half-life of the virus on a surface or in the air from 18 hours to less than 2 minutes. That's how much of an impact UV rays has on the virus, Bryan said. He also spoke about how effective bleach and other disinfectants could be at eradicating the pathogen in areas that were not exposed to sunlight in interesting research that could help Americans understand how to clean surfaces. But Trump, who appeared fascinated by the possibilities, posed a question of entirely different magnitude. Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. Supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do, either through the skin or in some other way? Trump asked, possibly thinking of an analogy to radiation treatment, which can be used to treat cancers. Then the president pondered another idea. I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. Is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets in the lungs, and it does a tremendous number on the lungs? A few moments later, Trump asked Dr. Deborah Birx, a top member of his pandemic task force, whether heat and light could be combined as a cure for someone facing the cascade of coronavirus complications including respiratory problems, cardiac issues and kidney failure that can be caused when the body tries to fight the virus and overreacts. The veteran MD and internationally renowned public health expert, who was seated off to the side, appeared to struggle with how to respond. Not as a treatment, it's a good thing when you have a fever, it helps your body respond. But, I've not seen heat for viruses. When Trump was subsequently asked why he was touting rumored cures and not medically proven science, the president reacted angrily, accusing the reporter of pushing fake news. "I am just here to present talent. I am here to present ideas because we want ideas to get rid of this thing," Trump said. The surreal nature of the spectacle later prompted CNN's chief White House correspondent Jim Acosta to reflect on air. "This is sort of becoming President Trump's traveling medicine show. Everyone who has lost their job, battled the virus, seen relatives die or has been stuck in their house for weeks can sympathize with Trump's fierce desire for a cure. And leaders who think out of the box are valuable." Wartime British Prime Minister Winston Churchill was known for funny science and flights of fancy like a proposal to turn icebergs into unsinkable aircraft carriers. But amid his wild schemes, he had some great ideas that helped win the war, too. So it's easy to mock Trump. But he also has the world's largest megaphone, appears to be openly mulling a treatment that could cause people to poison themselves if they adopted it, and has a record of deflecting from the grave reality of the virus to peddle optimism that may not be matched by the facts. He also seems to have little time for the rigorous clinical testing and factual deduction that is at the heart of generations of advances in clinical science and is the bedrock of ethical medicine. There is some scientific evidence that sunlight and humidity can make it more difficult for a virus to spread. But the struggle of tropical states like Singapore to contain a second wave of the pandemic appears to indicate that heat is not a miracle cure. And sunlight can't eradicate the spread of the virus among people gathering in large groups, or inside buildings. In a CNN town hall later Thursday evening, U.S. Food and Drug Commissioner Dr. Stephen Hahn insisted that Trump's musings about light therapy represented a natural question. Someone would ask based on the presented data. Pressed by Anderson Cooper, Hahn added, "I certainly wouldn't recommend the internal ingestion of a disinfectant." Renowned cardiologist Dr. Jonathan Reiner told CNN's Aaron Burnett that the president needed to leave the medical analysis to the professionals and that his statements needed to be vetted because so many people listened to him. "If the president thinks that tanning beds are going to cure the coronavirus, it is a mistake. It's not going to happen," Reiner said. Dr. Megan Ranney, an emergency physician at Lifespan Brown University, told Burnett that viruses and bacteria don't live as long in sunlight and said there probably would be a decrease of coronavirus infections over the summer. But she added, "Sunlight is not a panacea. It is not going to be a cure-all. It is not going to save us from the virus." The latest medical follies came a day after a top administration vaccine specialist Rick Bright said he was ousted after blocking funding for unproven virus cures touted by the president. Trump and his allies on conservative media spent weeks touting hydroxychloroquine based on small anecdotal studies in France and China. But a study this week by the National Institutes of Health and the University of Virginia found that hundreds of patients at U.S. Veterans Administration hospitals who took the drug were no less likely to need mechanical ventilation and had higher death rates compared to those who did not take it. Trump angrily denied that he had now stopped pushing the drug, though he hasn't talked it up for days in the briefing. "We have had a lot of very good results. And we had some results that perhaps aren't so good. I don't know," Trump said. Thursday was not the first time that Trump has speculated that warmer weather could just make the virus disappear. "You know, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat, as the heat comes in. Typically, that will go away in April," Trump said on Fox News on February 10. He added later at a rally, "Looks like by April, you know, in theory. When it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true." The president's hopes have been proven wrong. But the last sentence of his comment shows how he advances a wild theory but then gives himself some cover. By saying he hopes the virus would go away, he can accuse anyone questioning his comments as rooting against a cure and of peddling despair. When he says maybe something will work or maybe it won't, he gives himself similar leeway. Trump also contravened facts in a more conventional manner during his briefing. He was told that the country's infectious disease specialist Dr. Anthony Fauci had warned in a Time magazine interview earlier that he was not overly confident the U.S. had the robust testing operation in place to safely open up the country. "I don't agree with him on that. No, I think we're doing a great job on testing," Trump said. You like the video, I share it in the channel, and you share the video with your friends. It is more support for us to develop from ourselves always. Thank you.